Okay, general messages. I'm not sure where to start first. Like there were 4 different decks that I pulled the cards from. So let's start in the order of how I did it. This kind of like was the first one. So that kind of like really kind of like came to me like in a rush. Like really kind of like I felt really good. Both of them. Milky Way, given that we are going through the period of Libra transit. No guys, this is not reading for Libra. This is reading for all signs. We are simply going from the end of September till the end of October through transit of Libra, meaning Libra people have their birthday, I believe, starting 28th to 20th. So Milky Way, as you know, the Earth is part of this kind of like whole sets of galaxies that are kind of like all swirling. And just like when you compare that like with hurricanes and with tornadoes, like kind of like eye of the storm, they are enormous, right? So this one over here that shows a little dot, this is our solar galaxy over here. So you can just imagine how a small dot Earth is, and then how much smaller, non-existent to our eye dot is basically makes us. So I really think this kind of like is telling us to shed our ego, to kind of like understand the process that we are part of one big thing. And especially in the West, we are living with individualism, which I, as an Aquarius, really love. But we are kind of like forgetting that pushing in one way is completely neglecting the other, right? Because look what is happening right after gaining this perspective, after understanding, well, you know what? Even if I hate you, if I harm you, actually I'm harming myself. It's like, you know what they say, you cut your nose to spite your face. I think it might be actually a healing period. Keep in mind that Libra is all about bringing things in balance. It's kind of like really important, the transition we are going through. And then we are getting Waterfall as a follow-up card. Actually, 2 of them came out together. And so look at this cascading, beautiful kind of like falls coming out here. And I don't think there is any one of us coming in a sunny day on the edge of this, kind of like in saying, oh my gosh, I'm not being taken by this. I'm not feeling really relaxed. But I really feel that these 2 cards combined is basically sending us message that maybe we are coming to the edge of our comfort zone, and we are finding ourselves maybe fighting to resist moving past that, I don't know, perceived precipice. What is next? Where do I go forward? Maybe kind of like we went on like using our way so far on the ledge, and now we have to figure out who we are, how we can be, what we can become, and what we can do. So I think like coming to the spirit messages, spirit is asking us to step beyond that edge. Like that's a Fool card in tarot. The entire tarot is basically based on the Fool as the card. That's the God that is descending, as above so below. And here it's like Regis perspective. If you're struggling, then something is not effortless. So allow yourself to do so with ease rather than struggle, right? So I get it that at times like physical exertion is necessary, but when kind of like we are performing things with fluidity and grace, like even when something seems to be very kind of like daunting, then we actually really find that the movement is actually making us kind of like move effortlessly. It looks like that we are going to, because Libra is about communication. Don't forget that, yes, they're like lovey-dovey sign, but it is about communication. So in this like very kind of like tribal world that we are currently living in, I feel this is a great news, right? So remember, if from all this entire reading, from all the signs for your sign, you have to remember something. Remember that approach the present situation or relationship with awareness and grace. Don't try to make it effortless, because it's going to just like be more and more kind of like strain in all of that. Allow. So when you go in a conversation with somebody, just allow things to happen. No matter what they say, yeah, if they irritate you, just let this like flow, because guess what happens with the waterfall? It always kind of finds its way to the ocean, right? Nothing is really barrier. It's kind of like if you have something that is an obstacle, You just like flow around that. So you're going to find that ultimately you come to those calm waters. So it's kind of like really interesting because this card is usually kind of like referring to solar plexus and our breath. So solar plexus is in that navel region. It's really talking about our confidence. It is like really talking in boundaries that we set with other people, right? So breathing is also very, very important given that we have both air and water. And that's kind of like both suggesting to me that kind of like oxygen. We need to kind of like put things in perspective. Maybe like too much oxygen has been taken out of the room. Maybe we have like some situations where we kind of like feel all we are like talked out. And then I saw these two, which kind of like almost like reinforce this, because now we are dealing with heart chakra and with solar plexus chakra, right? Like gossip card is like really talking about kind of like really trying to find, probably like for maybe once, like it's telling me certainly that we have people who are like really not very savory, that kind of like could be in our surroundings, and we kind of like maybe need to kind of like deal with this, like because there are some people who are definitely all about prejudice and all about misunderstanding, and we have to find what is inside of us that we are resisting. If people who are like this don't make you angry, then you have to ask yourself why. Because anger is an emotion that has been built inside of us for a reason. And in this society, we are being discouraged of being angry because anger can, as we know, lead to really kind of like devastating actions. But anger really kind of like gives you that sort of like pointers. This is kind of like red flag that something is wrong. And this is kind of like to me clearly talking about that we have to find what basically we find in the others. Is that bothers us that they're very unique and they're not like us, or they're doing something that is like so out there that is just like it's not supposed to be tolerated. So maybe it's the other way around, that other people are not supporting your vision, that maybe there is like some kind of like lack of appreciation. So there is like a complete need to kind of like refocus your life, because this card is called facade. And this is really talking about reclaiming your life, because look at him, he's like walking on the clouds. He is like literally kind of like descending and kind of like understanding, hey, give me a hand, kind of like let's kind of like do this together. This also kind of like talks to me about childhood pain. And I know we don't kind of like wake up and say, I have to today deal with the childhood pain. Like this is not how it really works. But more or less the childhood pain kind of like results, kind of like manifests in everyday things, like how we approach relationships, how we deal with relationships, who are people around us, why are those people around us, etc., etc., etc. So sometimes we are making decisions out of that pain that we don't even notice that basically has been brewing all these years, and we are simply just mirroring it on a person who is like nearby. Right? So that's kind of like an issue, which I think it's going to be, and maybe this is also part that we need to put in perspective, how much of all this thing that is going on in our life is something that we created, right? Like, so take responsibility. I really think it's really important, because it's kind of like interesting that we didn't get justice card, but we did get integration for the Libra passage, which, check it out. Like, what is not in balance here? Look at this. A swan and an eagle. Which one is more important bird? One is like a visionary and one is like so beautiful and graceful, just like going back to that grace. There is like this lotus flower. There is like this Merkaba, right? Little Merkaba, which is kind of like a theory that we are actually, each one of us, inside of one of these, and that's how we receive our healing, through basically our spinal cord, right? And also there is like this yin and yang over here. As you can see, they're like the opposites, but even each of them contains a little bit of the other, right? So this is basically telling me that with everyone we can find something to break the bread with, right? And I think we have to go in that direction, even if it's a minuscule, even if it's like literally simple as just have a meal, let's just not talk, but we enjoy both food, something basic. That's kind of like really about merging the opposites, sun and the moon. This card, traveling, is the card about basically, path. As you can see, whatever this horseman is, this kind of card is really talking about enjoying the travel, not the destination. It is reversed though, so I'm really telling myself that maybe destination is important. Maybe it is important, like, I mean, who we want to become, in which direction we really want to go. Who do we, like, you know, like if you're making a sculpture, if you're making a sculpture, I cannot talk. Then like you're starting with some kind of like major shape, and then you're kind of like putting things out like eyes and nose, let's say if it's the head, right? So you kind of like know what your goal is. So that vision, like, hey, you know what, like maybe I kind of like started with focus too much on the eye, and now this eye is too big, this one is too small. Why not to kind of like try to keep that big perspective and just like keep going with kind of like these instincts. It almost looks like that we are all going to make a conscious choice to be better. And then this card showed up and poised, and this is like, whoa, look at this, so lovely. In fact, in the traditional card rendition of this card integration, it's called Temperance. And it's like talking about this basically merging of the opposites, merging of finding in the middle of patience, right? This kind of like really reminds me also, like kind of like there is this angel, kind of like, which is kind of like here mixing a silver and gold, right? I really think this is like talking about being ready and bringing something to light and being at your best and kind of like confidence, and that's happening only when we kind of like shed kind of like things that are not good in us, when we realize, this person is doing this, I don't like this in this person, but do I do this? Oh yeah, I have to kind of like check that in me, sort of a thing. So be ready for anything right now in this period. It's kind of like going to be really interesting because you will be very confident and people will be responding to the confidence. And it's kind of like when you're in the zone, you tend to have less friction, right? So like everything becomes like more kind of allowing and more gracious. And kind of like, let's say rich people can afford to give a better tip. So that kind of like feeling is going to permeate this entire month. So after this general part, let's start with the individual signs. Hi Sagittarians, and welcome to your October reading, monthly reading. So let's start. What do you have? From the Norman deck, you have the Crossroads, the King, the Gentleman. Then you have this Chemistry and Mysticism card. And then like Knave of Chalices over here. It is kind of like a really interesting combination because you see, where do I start? Let's start here, because this card is clearly belonging to your third eye chakra. There's like something that needs to open up. There is like somebody in your life who maybe wants to come toward you, right? After all, you have like this kind of like knave. It's kind of like possible a love offer. You might be dealing with somebody who is psychic. You might be dealing with somebody who is dealing with this kind of like mystical kind of like part of life. But maybe you will be meeting somebody like that, and you will kind of like really wonder if you are really fully open, if you can really embrace. But you will not be able to kind of like deny the allure of this person. It's going to be enormous chemistry. It's going to be a depth, but like this is also telling me that there is like something that you're neglecting. There's like something about your intuition. You need to kind of like listen to it. Maybe you have been ignoring it, something. What you suspect, guys, probably could be really true, right? So kind of like have courage to kind of like go in this direction, because like this is really telling me that it's going to be a really interesting month, right? And interesting is like really understatement over here. Why I say this, because I see this Crossroads card, right? This Crossroads card is really talking about you're getting to some kind of like level. Look, this path has been nice and clear and everything is okay, and all of a sudden now you have two paths that both seemingly go over the mountain. Mountains could be our challenges in life, but it looks like this is the key. And whether you're male or female, you're going to need a really masculine energy for doing that. But altogether, this is kind of like really sounding good. You're having this chemistry, which could be either with fire signs or with water signs. And like there is like this kind of like somebody who kind of like is really fascinated with relationship. It almost looks like that some of you kind of like gave up on a relationship, and it could be also that somebody's spying over here. Like you have two kind of like pages over here, and this kind of like talks about discovering a new level of intimacy. Maybe you kind of like got close into kind of like going in that direction, because it's simply going to be something that is going to push in that direction, either artistic or creative project, or as I was saying, just simply maybe like strolling in the psychic fair and sitting down and like some of you take my readings as an entertainment. The others of you take it seriously and they really advance their life. And something like that, I see the shift might happen to you. You might stroll in a psychic fair, just get a tarot reading for fun, and then all of a sudden you're going to say, oh my gosh, I have been blind, but now I can see, right? Because this is kind of like talking to me about somebody who is lost and who is now given a new discovery and it's able to understand that, right? So it's kind of like something that you're facing, that you're seeing that, hey, you know what, this is where I'm supposed to kind of like head, right? Because this is kind of like a really interesting card. It is a positive card, but it can also talk about escape. It can talk about having a difficulty reaching a decision. It can talk about duality, right? Or somebody's being two-faced over here, right? Decisions to be made. So when it comes to relationship, this actually can talk about uncertain time and, you know, another relationship coming into play. So it kind of like sounds to me that you guys are going to have lots of options this month. Lots of options, but at the same time, it's going to be something completely new that you'll be discovering through just kind of like having a completely new essence in your life. So let's see where we go. You have third knave of pentacles. Slow and steady wins the race. So I don't know, like with this many knaves or pages, it could also mean that you're dealing with children, that children are important or they're bringing some changes to your life. This also can talk about some kind of projects that maybe your fire energy would like to have them to move faster, but they're kind of like still moving with relatively slow kind of like pace. And there is another pentacle, Seven of Pentacles. And again, this is very much like this fork in the road. You get to some level of success and then you kind of like are wondering in which new direction you really want to go, right? And I really think that in this particular case, you're kind of like really figuring out what works for you and taking that into consideration, saying, okay, I have to work more on this and work a little bit less on this. And that's kind of like a winning combination. So it's going to be something like that that is going to be really important for you to kind of like reassess this month, right? And you're simply kind of like going to start going in completely new direction. Then, wow, you have Nine of Cups. Nine of Cups is interesting card. In different decks, I kind of like have a different interpretation. Here we see the kitty sitting comfy, kind of like around his 9 cups of milk, right? Really not a bad situation to be. But if you sit on it too long, even that shall pass. It's really talking about that currently there is like a comfort level that you have. And sometimes when we feel comfort, we don't want to get out of this comfort zone because by definition it makes us feel uncomfortable, and for you actually you really need to do that. And it's kind of like really interesting part. So let's see what happens. You had the King of Swords in reverse in the past. So I'm wondering if you have been dealing with a situation that has been kind of like harsh, and somebody has been really harsh here in a situation. There were like harsh words, and this is obviously plaguing you maybe some of you are deciding, oh, I'm going to be on my own. I kind of like really need to be on my own. But I really think you were kind of like maybe focusing yourself on work. Maybe you're focusing yourself on kind of simply kind of growing with career, growing money, and making yourself happy with kind of like really simple things. Because it could have been something that happened in the past that kind of like really shook you to the basically core of your being. Yeah. And this is another pentacle. I don't know what happens. Maybe you have been going through a situation where, you had to rebuild yourself. Maybe somebody left you out in the cold. That card usually to me talks about a third party situation. And this also can talk about that as well. I kind of like I'm starting to get a feel that there are actually more than two people over here. And there is like somebody who has like special kind of like powers over you. I'm not saying a curse. I'm not saying that somebody just like put a spell on you, but I'm saying somebody put a spell on you because you are like really strongly attracted to someone who probably was not treating you properly, or maybe you even didn't treat them properly. It's kind of like you're not seeing the way out. You're not seeing a winning combination over here, and that's the problem. It's kind of like, I can't live with you, but I can't live without you kind of a situation, right? And here is like the Ten of Pentacles. Like there is like a lots of going to be activity this month focused on your family, focused on your work, focused on your brothers, on your sisters, on your children, on your parents, on the close ones to you. It's kind of like your definition of the happy family. What makes me happy? What makes people around me happy? What do I need to provide for them to get there? It's kind of like really positive card. It's also kind of like ending certain phase. Like when I see these two cards, and this is like my immediate kind of like impact of the month, I'm also seeing this kind of like key card here, which kind of like can be connecting to this, where kind of like all roads not lead to the same place in your case, but you're kind of like finding comfort within your family, even though it looks like something there is causing you to kind of like be out on a limb, to be defensive, to kind of like account for something. Maybe you're just like simply working on repairing your family reputation or your family relationships. Emotions, the moon. There is like some level of jealousy, and again I see this mysticism. This is a very mystical card, right? This is again talking about the psychic. This is really talking about this like really energy that sometimes can get through you and you really don't know what got into you. I'm really wondering if you have a situation that hasn't been resolved, and because the moon makes us like sometimes envision things that are really not there, and this situation that you're going through is really not simple. There is like no such a thing as black and white answer. Like, I mean, even though here it's almost like saying, yeah, it will appear to you that it is, that you have to decide one or the other, but that's not the case, because you don't know where these roads continue to fork down the road as well. So I think, you see, by the light of the moon, the kind of like shades are kind of like fade into each other, and they're causing you to question what is really there. So this is really talking about your hopes. This is really talking about your fears. So everything is going to be highlighted, because everything is going to kind of like get there. So maybe even spending even time with some kind of like monsters of your dreams. You might have nightmares. You might be kind of like dealing with this kind of like levels, but that's like something that is really subconscious. This all is happening for a reason. Like, I mean, I have a feeling that those of you who are listening, that you had some kind of like psychic encounters in the past. This is like very, very strongly coming through, right? That maybe you are very logical mind, but whenever you apply this logic, you kind of like don't go as far as when you apply kind of like your intentions, your kind of like initiative, your intuitive. But at the same time, you're kind of like always fighting going in this direction. Your environment is pissing you off this month big time. You're having this like 9 of swords. Look at this, coming at you from all the sides, not knowing if it's coming or it's going, like, and it looks like it's going to be a lots of kind of like turbulence going forward, right? So no wonder you're keeping yourself full of comfort. But that's what I'm saying, that's not going to stay, because this is 9, this is 9, and this is 9, right? 18, 1 and 8 is 9. This is definitely asking you to kind of like wrap certain things up. Maybe you have been prolonging some decision, and it is really time to kind of like unlock and kind of like start it going in a new direction, because I have a feeling that people will ask you to do that. Almost like looks like that you are the key to kind of like some kind of solution. Maybe somebody's waiting for some kind of response from you, while you are waiting from some kind of response from somebody else. Talking about this like double kind of like trick, because I definitely see that this has been something that has been going on for quite a while, and you have been relying on your creativity and on your ability for storytelling to kind of like continue moving forward. But somebody is really insisting this month to kind of like have this access to certainty, like you are asked to provide some kind of certainty, and I feel that somebody wants emotional certainty, right? And like somebody has almost like a big wish card, right? There are like also some secrets over here that are going on, whether you were keeping secrets from your family, or there's like something that has been very secretive in this like entire situation, because I see this closed door here. I see this closed door here. So this is a church. Why would a church close the door to hungry, to broken, and to sick? So it must be something that these people even violated the very kind of like thing that this church is all about, and hence they cannot keep the door open for them. You kind of like have to tap into kind of like needs of the other people, because it looks like there are like some kind of like great expectations on you this month. So there is like this Ace of Pentacles, but it's, pardon me, Ace of Cups. It is like reversed. So somebody is offering love, but you're like fearing about accepting it. You're even fearing and going this direction. To some extent, this is really good that 1 is here, because like now we are shifting from 9 to 10 and 1. So there is like this wheel is turning, it's a new process starting. But there is like something that has left you with a huge impression, with a huge fear that you really need to overcome. You literally need to face your fears this month, Sagittarius. You really need to do that in order to move forward. Because there is like somebody, I believe, in your past that was like so meaningful, but I don't know if you are kind of like spying on them, or they're spying on you, or there is like some kind of like connection going kind of like forward, right? It was a situation that involved lots of lies. And there is a strength. There is this commitment card showing up. So it looks like you're going to kind of like pull certain things together and provide some kind of solution. Maybe you are kind of like really realizing what needs to be done. This is a very, very strong card. And if you especially are dealing with another fire sign, specifically this is a Leo, that can be really kind of like strongly resonating for you, that there is like something that needs to happen. So you're going to move forward in spite of your fears, which is really, really good. And that kind of like is talking about this masculine energy, kind of like trust your instincts, like combat and like, resolve your fears, face your fears, and move forward. And that's going to be really, really important, right? that happens. Oh yeah, these two cards were on the bottom. So let me clarify a few cards here for you. I really want to see this because something will be bugging the hell out of you this month. It's going to be really, you're going to feel like on needles. So let me see this nine of swords. Nine of swords. Yes. As I said, there is like somebody, look at this, lover, just like a gentleman, reunion, love, and faithfulness. You cannot live without somebody, but you cannot live with them either. There is, I think, a soulmate over here that I'm seeing. There is a total need for you to be with them. I think there are other people in your life who are depending on you and who really want to move forward with you. Almost looks like that you have a family and that you have somebody else on the side, or somebody has a family or somebody else on the side. I don't really think that you are with this person or that you are with this person anymore, because there are like too many nines over here. But I also think that you have been treated really poorly by this person, or also it is possible that it kind of like went both ways. So let me see that. King of Swords. Why is this King of Swords there? Conversation. Again, this is about conversation, but it looks like conversation was like you were made to feel that you're this big, right? King of Swords. Yes. Look. Conversation, falseness, and merchant. Somebody just like simply moved on. Somebody maybe felt you were not the one, or somebody really felt the situation basically is really not working well, or it was creating a lots of kind of like, as I said, like there's like a lots of kind of like lies that I keep kind of like seeing over here in your cards. And honestly, to some extent, you can just say, well, sure, somebody lied to you and just like brush it off like this. But over here, it kind of like looks like it was going both ways. And I'm not so sure why. It could be that somebody treated you like badly and you treated them badly in turn. And this kind of like things are going back and forth. And somebody was just looks like looking for their place in the sun, just like you were looking for your place in the sun. Because you know, like this card really talks about gossips and rumors and nastiness and two-faced person and corruption and betrayal and defensiveness. Oh my gosh, like what happened over here? It was like going all the way. And you love this person. You do. But you really don't believe that this partner is completely sincere, or that this new relationship would last, even though the chemistry is ridiculous over there. But you cannot really point a finger on kind of like what was it that made this kind of like break it, right? You kind of like can point to the situation and who called it quits. But you don't even understand how is this even possible. And that's, I guess, the kind of like really difficult situation. The answer is really obvious for you. You kind of like have something that you're dealing with, but there is like something that is like almost like buried inside of you, that almost like could be that you're dealing with yourself, because you almost like looks like past the judgment. But the truth was that there was like something else going on, which you either didn't want to take in account, or you didn't see it. Let me see, why is this Ace of Cups over there? Why is this Ace of Cups for Sagittarius? Ace of Cups. And here we have endless conflict in the last second. Melancholy, wedding, and journey. Are you guys married? Almost looks like that this could be marriage and a family, and this could be another person, because we have the wedding over here, and the wedding is over something that is not working out. Or you were planning to marry somebody, and that didn't really happen, and hence like you see like you're on your own, and maybe you're feeling, oh, I'm much happier on my own, thank you very much, kind of a thing. But when you come home in the darkness of the night, you kind of like start to think about this person. And as much as you hate this person, that much, at the least that much, you love this person. Maybe you are dreaming of this person coming back to you. Maybe you're checking on this person, but also what I see, that that person is also checking on you, and it is kind of like going in both directions. Maybe they simply kind of like dumped you, or you dumped them, or you didn't have an option. There was like some family you had to deal with, and they were like, I mean, on the second burner, and they didn't want to be secondary. I definitely see lies over here. As I said, it was kind of like flying all over the place. It looks like it's one of those karmic kind of like things that you had to really pull it off. And that's why the Mystic card, and that's why the Moon card keeps coming over here. But you are kind of like doing the right thing from what I see. You are kind of like moving forward in this direction. Slow and steady wins the race kind of a thing. And you're kind of like really trying to do the best out of the situation that currently you can have. So Sagis, I have pulled one more card for you, and that's going to seal the reading. I also hope to actually see your comments. And if you want your daily dose of tarot, check me on Facebook and on Instagram. And so let me show you what you got. You got Ghostlands reversed. So this is what it says. You can learn from the past and imagine a beautiful future, but you must live in the here and now. And that would be your pentacle kind of like line that you had here. So this is what it says for reversed. When the Ghostlands card appears reversed, it is a sign that you are wandering in an emotional and intellectual place with no real substance. There is no point longing for that which has already gone or hasn't happened yet. Perhaps you've created a fantasy of the good old days, or some elusive utopian destination that lies somewhere in the future when this or that happens to make things better. Live one day at a time. Each day is a new beginning filled with truth and beauty. Stay away from the ghostlands of past and future. Avoid nostalgia and longing for something better. Find joy in what is present in your life today. And I really think that's what's going to be basically the name of the month. You are going to be really turning every single stone. You will not be able to hold this nostalgia. You will not be able to kind of like not to kind of like wander in these ghostlands. And why? Because there is like somebody who you love. There's like nothing wrong about that. If this is the food for you guys, then eat. If this is like how you need to function, the oil and springs for the car, then make sure they function, because you're actually getting strong toward the end of the month. And keep in mind that you're like really next in the birthday lineups, and that's why gathering strength is really important. And we all can do only thing that we can do the best at this time. So don't fret, don't kind of like annoy yourself with things. And if something needs to be let go, something needs to be let go. I think to some extent you're feeling that you made the wrong choice. And the reason why I'm feeling this, because I do feel this is something that is stemming way back in the past, that is kind of like haunting you, because like you have that haunting feeling around. It's almost like the wind blows and you kind of like feel a smell, and that smell evokes emotion. So it is clearly telling you, look, if something cannot go, maybe, two wrongs don't make a right. Maybe it is a time to go in a completely new direction. Maybe there is a chemistry with somebody completely new. Maybe it is a chance for you to kind of like really kind of like figure out what really needs to happen. But in the meantime, just be supportive of the people who you have around you, and things will actually eventually start moving forward. So Sagittarians, I really hope I actually hear your comments, and until the next time, wish you all my best, and I love you.